Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on the intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a terrific show planned for you today. Don't forget to stay tuned to Warriors Talk on after the Drive at 5 on the intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station with Rochelle at 6 p.m. Tonight, my guest is a attorney, former commissioner, and now a candidate for Cook County Board President. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome back to attorney Richard Boykin. Welcome back to the Drive.
Well, thank you very much, Roman. I'm honored to be on the show and thank your listening audience as well.
I'm going to make this disclaimer. I have worked and volunteered with former Cook County Commissioner Richard Boykin in the past with policies and currently a volunteer on his campaign for Cook County Board President. The views that are expressed on the Drive at 5 are not the views of IntellectualRadio.com or iHeart radio station, nor showcase support of the candidate it's by itself. So with that said, please give intellectualradio.com/iHeartRadio station an update since the last time you were on the Drive.
So I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. I'm attorney Richard Boykin, was raised in Inglewood, actually had the opportunity to go off to college on a football scholarship at Central State University. And then I went to the University of Dayton School of Law. Then I went to Washington, D.C. and worked for 13 years for three members of Congress. I worked for former Senator Carol Moseley Braun, Congressman Bobby Rush, and Congressman Danny Davis as his chief of staff for almost 10 years. I came back to Chicago, practiced law at Barnes and Thornburg, a big national law firm. I was a partner there for 13 years. 2 years ago, started my own law practice, Bridge Builders. So I'm a bridge builder, of course, and things have been going great. I just got in the race for Cook County Board President back in February. We're on the ballot. We're excited. I'm running because, look, Cook County is at a crossroads. Gun violence, carjackings, retail thefts, all of these things have combined to terrorize our neighborhoods. Children are literally dying in the streets, and families are not getting justice. In fact, last year, according to the Census Bureau, 90,000 people left Cook County. That is a big problem for all of us in Cook County when we have so many people leaving. The county has become an island of taxation with the highest property taxes, the highest sales taxes. These are all issues that must be addressed by the current board president, and they have not been addressed for years. In fact, last year, over 1,000 people were killed in Cook County by gun violence, and that's the highest number in 27 years. 81% of those killed were African American, about 15% were our brown brothers, Latinos, and so we got a lot of work to do. Look, this county board 2 weeks ago did something that I think was outrageous. I think it was very arrogant. They actually voted themselves a 10% pay increase, a 10% pay increase, and a 3% increase every year thereafter without having to take a vote. That is outrageous in this economic climate. And quite frankly, why would you vote yourselves a pay raise when you have not addressed the issues that are most pressing to the needs of county taxpayers? And that is gun violence, trauma, mental health treatment, the issues of carjacking, the highest property taxes, the highest sales taxes, but yet they line their own pockets. They pat themselves on the back as if they've solved all of the problems. But we have senior citizens who are struggling every single day. We have people who are starving in Cook County. We have children growing up in single parent homes, not getting the support that they need. We have grandparents raising grandkids who are struggling, but yet this board voted themselves a 10% pay increase. It's outrageous, and the people ought to be mad about it, and they ought to take it out on them on June 28th. Vote for change. Vote for change on June 28th. Richard Boykin will bring about that real change.
What is your platform for Cook County Board President?
So, my platform is a platform for the people. It is to make sure that we're safe in our neighborhoods. The issues of gun violence have terrorized our communities. People are afraid to go downtown, Roman. And when people are afraid, that means they are not going to go down there. And if they stop patronizing downtown or neighborhood businesses because they fear they're going to be an innocent victim of gun violence or a stabbing or a robbery, if they stop going, that means less tax revenue for Cook County and for the city of Chicago and for other municipalities. So I want to make sure that people are safe. And if we make our neighborhoods safe, we can increase our business and economic activity. So businesses will not come to neighborhoods that are not safe. That's just a fact. They can't afford the insurance rates, and so they just won't come. And so, what we have to do is make sure that our neighborhoods are safe. I'm going to prioritize safety, but then I'm also going to prioritize affordability and making sure that senior citizens, veterans, and others aren't pushed out of their homes because they can't afford the taxes for their homes or because they can't afford the sales taxes and other things associated with taxation. And so, this current board president has been totally inhospitable to the business community. She hasn't even talked to the manufacturers, the manufacturing community in 12 years. She has not talked to them. I will talk to them. I will welcome them. In fact, in her 12-year tenure, manufacturing in Cook County is down by 10%. 10%. We've lost 10% of the manufacturing base over the last 12 years. We've lost 8.9% of the retail base in terms of retail stores. And so we got to grow our county. We got to grow the business base, but we can't afford to continue to create an island of taxation. Now, that raise that those folks voted themselves, that raise is going to cost millions of dollars to the taxpayers. Wouldn't you have taken that money and put it into trauma care or put it into fixing the problem of gun violence? This lady hasn't been able to fix the issue of gun violence because she's totally had her head in the sand when it comes to gun violence. She has not collaborated or worked with the current mayor of Chicago or the other 132 municipal mayors throughout the county. She hadn't worked with them. And so, quite frankly, uh, we got a lot of money coming in from the federal government, from the state government. But if you don't work with people, if you work in a silo, then you can't get anything accomplished. We're not an island unto ourselves, except for in the 6 county region, we are the highest taxes in terms of sales and property taxes. And I will fix that.
Briefly explain the role of Cook County Board President and why the role of Cook County Board President is very important to our everyday lives.
So, Cook County is the government for the least of these. It serves the poorest of the poor in our county. And so the budget is an $8 billion budget, $8.11 billion budget. The reality of it is that 90% of that budget is public safety and public health. So we fund all of the public safety stakeholder offices in Cook County, and that is the state's attorney, the sheriff's office, the chief judge, the public defender, the probation department, the clerk of the circuit court. All of these offices are funded by the county board. And the county board has a big say in terms of public safety. But this president hasn't. The only thing she's done, and I was on the board and I voted to do this, and that is reduce the jail population, but and to deal with cash bail. So it voted to end cash bail for people who commit misdemeanors, not people
Who
engaged in
helped
gun
wrote that
violence.
legislation, if I
Yeah,
stand
yeah,
corrected?
yeah. So I sponsored the legislation. Yes. But I mean I was co-sponsor of it. But the reality of it is this county, for example, when I unveiled my public safety plan, a few weeks ago, and people can get that public safety plan on my website at richardboykinforcookcounty.com. Please go look at it. It's a good public safety plan. So the reality of it is when I unveiled that public safety plan, a lady came to me. I had a number of mothers who had lost children to gun violence. She actually lost her 15-year-old son. And she said to me, she said, why was this man out on the street? She showed me a picture of a guy. She said, this is the man who killed my son, who killed my 15-year-old son. And I said, she said, Commissioner Boykin, I asked the assistant state's attorney, this man had a record a mile long. He was charged with a gun offense, but yet he was out on electronic monitoring. And she said, why was he out on electronic monitoring? And so she said to the assistant state's attorney, why? The assistant state's attorney said, well, that's the way it is in Cook County. Well, under the Boykin administration, that is not the way it will be. Anybody charged with a gun offense will wait until their trial comes up. We will not let them out on electronic monitoring. We will not be weak like this current administration. It is too many people who are being killed on the west and south sides of Chicago, and now even downtown and in our suburban communities. You see, violence is like a cancer. If you don't cut it out when you find out about it, it metastasizes and then it spreads throughout the entire county. And so, what has happened is we haven't dealt with the root causes of violence. And my plan deals with the root causes of violence. And you know about the plan because you helped to write much of it. And so, we deal with the root causes of violence, but we got to help our young people. We got to help single parents raising their kids. We got to help grandparents raising their grandkids. We got to provide mentors for children, for especially for young boys. We got to have male role models and for young girls as well. And so that's what my plan does. It also provides a jobs program for our young people. And for example, the millions of dollars that they're spending on this whole pay raise that they gave themselves, this 10% pay raise that the county board approved 2 weeks ago and that the president approved, they could have taken that money and put it into a summer jobs program for our young people. Our young people don't have that. And so the county also does public health. So, on the public health side of things, if anybody needs health care, if they don't have health insurance, they can go to the county hospital or they can go to one of our federally qualified community health centers and they can get service. Now, I will tell you this, what disappoints me most about this administration is that we weren't prepared for COVID. The county wasn't prepared. And so I would say that the state of our healthcare system in the county is not good. And I say that based on facts, and people can check the facts. Now, I just unveiled a public health plan to strengthen the mental and physical health of people in Cook County. So we weren't prepared for COVID. And so we had nurses and we had doctors on the front lines who didn't have proper PPE, personal protective equipment. They didn't have masks. They didn't have the right gloves. They ran out of all that stuff. They couldn't
But
access
to
it.
be fair, to be fair, you were there as commissioner,
Hmm.
and there were less trauma centers. So if someone gets shot, they have to go to either Cook County or Loyola. That was not fixed. You say to that.
Well, look, I agree that we need more trauma centers, but we need more trauma treatment in general. Um, Obviously, a lot of the mental health clinics were closed under the Emmanuel administration and under the governor when the governor closed all the state mental health institutions. Uh, we got to do the best we can. Look, when I was a county commissioner, we put 12.1 million into a new mental health drop-off center on the west side of Chicago. That was part of my leadership in getting that there. Um, Part of my leadership was also bringing the first command center to Austin or to the city of Chicago. It's in Austin with the sheriff's police and the sheriff working alongside the Chicago Police Department. I made that happen. The sheriff recently opened up another command center in River North to help up there because of the shortage of CPD officers. So let me get back to the health, though, of our people. So here's how the county failed in terms of not having the adequate PPE for nurses and for doctors. But also, they closed down Provident Hospital for 2 weeks. And the other failure is that she fired what I think is one of the greatest public health administrators in the country, Dr. Terry Mason, during the height of the pandemic. And she replaced him with two doctors. Now, the University of Wisconsin looked at the 102 counties in the state of Illinois, and they graded them along six characteristics of healthcare, meeting the needs of people. In three of the six, the county was near the bottom in the 102 county region. Um, we were only in the top in one. And then there's a 30-year expectancy, life expectancy gap between somebody who lives in Austin and somebody who lives in Streeterville or downtown.
What
So
is
if
that
you
life expectancy?
so if you live downtown, you're going to live 30 years longer than someone who lives in Austin. So if you live in Austin, you're going to die 30 years sooner than somebody who lives downtown, only a few miles away. It makes absolutely no sense, right? But there are issues, there are food deserts that weren't dealt with by this administration. You got to work with these communities to make sure they have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Kids in Austin, it's easier to get a gun than it is to get a fresh fruit and vegetable. Believe it or not, not just Austin, Englewood, and some of the other communities throughout the county as well. So we got a lot of work to do, Roman. But I encourage people take a look at my health plan. You know, ask the current board president what's her plan. I mean, she hasn't come to any of the candidate forums. People should call into her office and say, why aren't you coming to the candidate forums? We had one yesterday at Carter G. Woodson Library on 95th and Halsted. She didn't show up. We had one on the west side of Chicago. The West Side NAACP did one. She didn't show up. This Saturday, it's one on the south side with the NAACP. I hope she shows up, but she can't avoid the one on June 15th at WTTW, Channel 11. That's at 6:30 at night. She'll be there for that one, and I'll be there too with bells on. I'm looking forward to it.
A lot of people want to know why now. You chose to run for county board president instead of going for it back then when you had a chance as county commissioner. Why now? Why
Because
now is the time?
now is the time because there's a fierce urgency of the now. Too many of our people are dying. Too many of our citizens are dying. 90,000 people, Roman, are leaving Cook County. They're getting out as fast as they can. If we continue on that trend, we won't have enough workers or enough people to support the retirees who are getting pensions in the county. Then you really got a problem. Why now? Because we got too many people who are losing their homes because they can't afford the property taxes. Why now? Because we got people who are sleeping under bridges, in tents. We got people sleeping in Tent City that this administration has ignored. We got people who are living in the Southland who are paying the highest property taxes known to mankind. We got people who are afraid to go downtown. People who are afraid to go to different communities throughout our county. Now is the time. Now is the time to fix these problems. We got a county board that's arrogant, that's egotistical, that basically
But
line
how
their
you
own
gonna?
pockets.
But how you're going to put them in line?
We're going to put them in line because the people are going to speak. When the people speak, they will listen. Politicians only understand two things: they understand money and they understand votes. If people go out and vote like they're capable of voting, then they will take attention to that. They will get noticed. The people will get noticed. Uh, I'm asking people for a mandate. That means an overwhelming response of the electorate towards our campaign, an overwhelming move, an army moving in our direction to help us win this race. I need everybody who is listening to make sure you go out and vote. Tell your parents, your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your uncles, aunts, everybody, go out and vote, vote, vote. Make sure that you tell your friends to vote. People died for us to have this right. And so we got to go out and vote. We got to exercise our right. If we want to change anything, Roman, change begins with us. It begins with each and every one of us. If we're tired of the current system and the way that things are going, we can change it. I believe it.
You ran for county clerk last election.
Mhm.
Now this one. What you want to say to the people who might think you are finding your way back to public office in any capacity?
No, look, I've run for two county offices. I've run for county commissioner and I've run for county clerk. Uh, just so happened that when we ran for county clerk, COVID hit. I think we did pretty good in that race. We got over 2,000 votes, a little bit over 200,000 votes, which is not bad for not a lot of people knowing you throughout the county. But I was very pleased for everybody who voted for me. And a lot of people didn't come out because of COVID, but now they can come out. I'm running for board president. I want you to remember this is the lady that put that soda pop tax on everybody. This is the lady. She voted for it. It was a tie vote on the board. I was on the board. I'm the guy who led the effort to get rid of it. I'm also the guy who got rid of the tax on feminine hygiene products for women. I'm also the guy who put a permanent position in county government in the inspector general's office to deal with nothing but sexual harassment complaints. I'm also the guy who banned law enforcement officers in the county from choking people when they arrest them. So, and I'm also the guy who had one of the best attendance records on the county board, who showed up every day for work and who represented the people of the first district like they've never had representation before. We brought back money, resources, and we did an effective job. And so I'm running because I'm running for the people. And so, to those who would be cynical and suggest that somehow that I'm just running for anything, no, I've run for two county offices, Cook County Commissioner and Cook County Clerk.
Crime is another part of your agenda as Cook County Board President. You already explained to our listening audience your plan a little bit. Why you think it will curb Cook County violence?
Well, because we address the root causes of violence. She's not addressing the root causes. The reality of it is that everything begins in the home. There's an African proverb that says the ruins of a nation begins in the homes of its people. And I believe that. So we got single parents who are struggling to raise children in those homes. We got grandparents who are struggling to raise their grandkids. And we got a community, a society who says it takes a village to raise a child, but we aren't putting our arms around the homes. We aren't putting our arms around those single parents and those grandparents raising grandkids. So I would provide grants from the county to help provide the support that they need in order to make those
But what
homes
kind of
better.
grants?
These are grants to faith based organizations, parenting organizations that will help parents who may be struggling with deficits in terms of parenting skills and that sort of thing, or even child care grants. They may be suffering with child care and trying to make that happen. But whatever they need, we're going to provide it. And then we'd have a mentoring program for all of those young boys who are being raised by their single mothers. And they may not know what it's like to be a young boy, and then definitely not what it's like to be a man, because we're going to break the cycle. We're going to break the cycle of violence. We're going to break the cycle of hopelessness. I'm committed to doing it because We can do it. We got the resources to do it. We just got to apply the resources to where they need to go. And we need to get busy about it because we're losing too many of our young men to the streets. We're losing too many of our young men to gangs. We're losing too many of our young women as well. And so we got a lot of work to do, and we got to do it, and we got to do it in a hurry.
Crime was high before you were commissioner, and crime was down while you were in office. You were very instrumental in bringing the Cook County sheriffs to the streets of Chicago as commissioner, setting up offices in hot zone areas. You want to increase the Cook County Sheriff's role on the streets while your opponent wants to decrease their role on the streets. Why you think expanding the Cook County Sheriff's role on the streets of Chicago will curb the violence?
Look, we can't police our way out of the current climate that we're in. I'm smart enough to know that. But I'm also smart enough to know that you don't defund the police. This county board 2 years ago voted to defund the sheriff's police. Now they're running away from it now. They're saying, well, we didn't defund them. We just shifted resources from him to social programs. Well, what do you call it when you take 5% of somebody's budget, their budget that you approved, and then you take it and put it somewhere else? At the height of the defund movement, the George Floyd defund movement, I call that defunding the police. They're running away from it now. I support our men and women in law enforcement. I accentuate the positive things that they're doing in our communities. When I was a county commissioner, I held basketball games with the youth and with the sheriff's police and CPD. We all got involved. We worked together. They came and they talked to the youth. And you got to break down those barriers that exist. So I believe in our police. And I look, the Chicago Police Department is down about 1,600 officers. A lot of officers are leaving and walking away because they don't feel supported. They don't feel like the community trusts them, and they don't feel like the administration has their back. Well, under Boykin, we will have your back as long as you're doing the right thing. Those who aren't doing the right thing, then they need to quit. They need to leave the force. But those who are doing what is right by our communities, we welcome them, we embrace them. I'm going to resurrect my idea about providing free homes to first responders, police officers, firefighters, teachers, paramedics. Maybe I'll include veterans or some other group who live and work in endangered communities for 5 years. We got a land bank that actually is supposed to be there to help develop our communities and help get rid of dilapidated buildings and get those vacant lots back onto the tax rolls and let developers build houses on it and get those you know uh, values of the properties in the neighborhoods up. Well, I'm going to utilize that land bank to make sure that we help our first responders, to make sure that our officers, our teachers, our veterans, our paramedics, our firefighters are all prioritized. I believe that helps to
But part of
to
the
to
problem,
stabilize communities.
but part of the problem with, even though it's not your jurisdiction, the Chicago Police Department,
Mhm.
and some people would say Cook County Sheriff, even though statistics show there's more African Americans, but it needs to be more
At the sheriff's
at
police.
the sheriff police. What is your intentions to have more African Americans to serve and protect Cook County?
Look, I think it's important to have equity. When I was a county commissioner, I'm the guy who asked the question, what's the percentage of contracts, prime contracts, going to African American firms, African American owned firms at the health and hospital system? To my surprise, it was less than 1%. Less than 1%. Back in 2016, I think I asked the question. That percentage was less than 1%. Um, and we had to do a lot to try to bring equity around that. And look, in terms of a police force that represents the makeup of our community, I think we got to have that in government all across the board. In my administration, we'll have the most diverse administration in the history of Cook County. I believe in diversity. I believe in making sure that all communities are represented and at the table. I think our strength is our diversity in Cook County.
Why you think county government needs transparency and how you're going to provide that transparency as county board president? Right now, a lot of people don't feel like there's transparency, but you said you will provide it. How?
Look, I'm going to make things available to people. We'll make sure that the process for um, getting public documents is streamlined and smoother. Um, the FOIA process has to be one that really respects the community and provides the community with everything that they need. But I blame too the media for a lack of transparency. The media has to report on what's happening in government, and they have to be fair and they have to be balanced about it. But these guys in the media have been very lazy and they've not reported on many things that are happening in Cook County. They haven't reported on the state of the healthcare system in Cook County. They haven't reported on the fact that there are people who are working at the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center and other places, Cook County Hospital, who've yet to receive their hazard pay that came from the federal government.
But
Um,
but
they've yet to report
you
on that.
said hazard pay, right?
Yeah,
During the pandemic, am I
yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So let's say you're in the office right now. How are you going to make sure those people get their money?
I'm going to tell them to release it. Right now, she's holding them
And
hostage
why is that?
because she wants them to sign a contract that they don't want to sign. She wants to force them to sign a contract that they don't want to sign. SEIU Local 73.
But as county board president, you'll say release it. Will it go
I'll
to
say
the
release it. Look, the money is a pass through from the federal government. The money should have been released on day one. Once the county government got it, they should have released it. These people gave their lives, they put their lives on the line for all of us. And we shouldn't hold it up based on a contract negotiations.
do you
That's not right.
do you think your opponent is running the county board as a dictatorship?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, everybody knows that. She's the most vindictive person known to mankind. She's not a nice person. Um, Look, I'm a bridge builder. I believe in working with everybody. She won't work with Lori Lightfoot on the violence because she ran for mayor against her. And she didn't win one ward, not one, not even her own. And so people don't really appreciate the fact that she won't work with her. Look, that's not just that, but the president of the county board sits on the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. It's an outfit that deals with public safety in the state plan, the local plans for public safety. Do you notice she only went to one meeting in 4 years? She's a she by statute is a member of that committee. The sheriff, the state's attorney, the clerk of the circuit court, the public defender, all these people sit on that. You can go in person or you can send somebody. Do you know that she only went one time in 4 years? She may have sent somebody one other time. What does it say to you how she feels about public safety if she won't even attend the meetings?
Well,
And when
she's
she was asked about it, she didn't even answer the question.
well, she said this, and the Chicago Tribune recently endorsed your opponent, describing her as tough. She mentioned that you were weak as county commissioner, and now the Tribune is calling her tough. What is your response to the Chicago Tribune endorsement and calling her tough and describing you as weak?
The Chicago Tribune got it wrong. They got it wrong. They want to perpetuate the status quo, and it's shameful. It's shameful. I mean, they didn't mention the fact that they had just voted themselves a 10% pay increase. They didn't mention it in their editorial. They said some good things about me. Said she ought to pay attention to a lot of things that I've raised. but they got it wrong. And that's just the bottom line. It's part of the um, cynical nature of reporting, and it's part of their laziness in terms of getting it right. And so they see the same thing that we see. They see all the
But they
violence.
still endorsed her.
Yeah, I don't know what it
I
means.
mean, the bottom line, a win is a win.
No, I don't. I disagree with that.
And why you disagree?
Because 2 years ago, the Tribune endorsed me and I didn't win. 2 years ago for clerk, they endorsed me and I didn't win. So,
But you just said it was
so I'm
because of the
saying to
COVID.
you, no, I'm saying no, no, no. I'm saying to you this: that a Tribune endorsement does not mean that much. The only endorsement that matters is what the people think on election day, what the people say. I understand what the editorial board said because I read it. I thought it was garbage. You asked me what I thought about it. I thought it was garbage. But I didn't spend much time on it because I got too many other issues that I'm focused on. They didn't focus on the fact that gun violence is the highest level in 27 years in the county. They didn't focus on the fact that people are afraid to come downtown. People are afraid to go through certain neighborhoods in the county. They didn't focus on the fact that people are paying the highest property taxes and sales taxes. They didn't focus on the fact that these people are growing government and not growing jobs and that we're headed for an economic catastrophe. They didn't focus on that. And shame on them.
There is a narrative out there that paints you as, and I phrase this as a new term. You laughing before I get it out.
I'm
A re-
always laughing whenever somebody say there's a narrative out there that paints you at this. Okay.
they're calling you, and they called you a Republican,
Uh-huh.
but they painting you as a Republicrat, meaning you in public you think you are a Republican, describing yourself as a Democrat. What you say to those people who paint you and paint the narrative as you a Republicrat?
What I would say is that those are the same cynical people who haven't dealt with the issues that are affecting our county. Those are the same cynical people who haven't dealt with the economic development needs of our communities. There are places on the west and south sides of Chicago that are still burned out from the riots of 1968. Those are the same people that haven't addressed the issues of gun violence. And it's been going on for at least 10 or 12 years now. We've been in a perpetual state of crisis, public health emergency. These are the same people who failed to deal with the budgets, who failed to bring taxes down, but who've grown government. These are the same people who've done that. So you gotta, they're trying to distract the voters. One, and two, they know I'm a lifelong Democrat. I never pulled the Republican ballot in my life. I grew up in Inglewood. Just the mere thought that somebody would call me that, my mother would smack them if she was around. I couldn't grow up in a house and be a Republican, as you call it. But I'd also say this is that you know, I worked for three of the most liberal members of Congress. Do you think that they would have somebody working for them who was a Republican? I worked for Bobby Rush, who was a Black Panther who got elected to the United States Congress. I worked for the first Black female senator, Carol Mosley Braun, a brilliant lady. I worked for Congressman Danny Davis, the voice of God in the Congress, and a lion by many people's uh, portrayal of him. I was his chief of staff for almost 10 years. Do you think he would have had me as his chief of staff? Congressman Davis is one of the most liberal members of Congress. He's as far to the left as you can get. And do you think he would have had me as his chief of staff if I was a Republican? So you can tell those same people who say that they ought to be busy fixing the issues that impact our community the most. And the last time I looked, it was no Republicans in charge in the county. In fact, there are only two Republicans on the county board out of 17 members. Two out of 17 members. And so last time I looked, were all Democrats in charge of everything. And black people and brown people are catching hell under these administrations.
We're almost running out of time. I got to zip through these questions, so please help me out here. Um, Number one, you mentioned endorsements. You have a right to say who's endorsing you.
We got a lot of endorsements. I encourage people to go to my website and check them out. We got a lot of them,
All right.
and I'm proud of them.
You mentioned taxes. Cook County is the highest in the nation in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
As county board president, how are you going to reduce county taxes as many residents are hurting? Right now, you basically said that county board voted themselves a 10% increase. So I'm going to tie in this question along with another question, and that is your opponent wants to create a hardship for Cook County residents, similar version to the Chicago hardship through a lottery system. You said that's not a good idea to give county residents a hardship because it only barely gives 1% of county residents the stipend. What is your thoughts on how you're going to fix county taxes and reduce it? And also the barely 1% of the stipend that you say no to that she's given.
So I'm going to do it the old fashioned way, man. We're going to make our neighborhood safe. We're going to bring businesses to our neighborhood. You know, if you make it safe, they'll come. If you make it safe, they'll come. If you build it, they'll come. We're going to bring tax incentives. We're going to make sure that these businesses are safe and that they can hire people from within the community, and that, you know, we can grow our businesses in the county instead of losing businesses. Again, we've lost manufacturing, we've lost retail, we've lost a lot of things under this current administration in the business sector. And so we're going to grow those businesses. We can bring them back. We're going to grow our tax base. When you have a larger tax base, guess what? You don't have to charge so few people so much. So the more people you have that are working, that are benefiting, that are buying goods and services, that means that you're going to reduce the burden on everybody else. That's how we're going to do it on the tax side of things. And we're going to hold the line on taxes. We're not going to be raising taxes, you know, like this administration. These guys, they could have taken the money that they took for their raises and put it into a jobs program for young people, or they could have put it into a program to help our senior citizens afford their medications, or they could have put it into a fund to help people who are on the brink of losing their home because they can't afford their property taxes. Right? When I was a county commissioner, guess what I did? I gave back $40,000 of my own salary to the taxpayers. So county commissioners are part-time positions. They aren't full-time jobs. You get 4 full-time
But county
employees.
commissioners make what, 85 to $90,000 a year?
They
Do
make
you call that
they make 85,000 a year plus full benefits plus a pension. Now they will make 93,500 a year plus full benefits plus a pension. It's a part-time job. You can hold another job. Other than that, you only have one board meeting a month, one board meeting a month, and then you're off in August. No board meetings in August. And so, who wouldn't want that part-time job in America? That's a great part-time gig. If you're making 93.5 a year plus full benefits plus a pension plus a 3% increase on top of that every year, who wouldn't want that job? Sign me up. I want it. Sign me up. Unfortunately, you can't get it unless you're on the county board and you're part of the corruption. Then you can get it if you're part of that corruption. But we're going to clean it up. And so then your other question was about the guaranteed basic income. So we got 5.2 million people who live in Cook County, second largest county in the country. This program that she took federal money for COVID, the county got $1 billion to spend on COVID related items. So she took the money and she decided that she was going to follow the city's lead because she introduced this program well after the city introduced their program. And so she said, we're going to do it in the county too. Well, she said, well, we're only going to do it for 3,250 residents. And we're going to give them $500 a month for 2 years. Then what? Then what? Man, we got to help everybody. Everybody's struggling. Have you seen the gas prices? I was at 75th in Indiana yesterday on the south side. 7.29 for premium. Six,
But I
six,
want to ask you a question
$6.
about
Hold
that
on, hold on.
since
So
you're
I'm going to get into it. Here's the deal. You got to help everybody. You can't just help a handful of people with federal resources. It makes no sense. You got to help everybody. So what I would do is I would roll back the gas tax, the county portion of the gas tax. The state ought to do the same. The state portion of the gas tax is 39 cents. $1.20 or between $1.10 and $1.20 is taxes in Chicago, in Cook County. That's why we're paying the highest gas prices in the Midwest, right here in Cook County. That's why everybody who can, they run to Indiana or they run to Wisconsin or they go to DuPage County or they go somewhere else because they can't afford the taxes. But the problem is when you go there to buy your gas, then you might decide to eat at one of the restaurants there, right? You might decide to dine in there at one of the restaurants or carry out. And then you might decide to shop at one of the grocery stores there or buy your smokes there. Whatever, you're running the county taxpayer money out. The county is losing tax dollars to all these other areas because we haven't been wise in our policies. Our policies have driven people out of Cook County. These are bad policies. Make no mistake about it.
so you're saying you'll reduce the gas pump tax
I
when
would.
you're
I would in a
immediately.
heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I'd suspend it. I wouldn't reduce it. I'd suspend it till the end of the year. I would suspend it. And the city ought to do the same and the state ought to do the same. We got to provide everybody relief. The tax on groceries, there should not be. These are necessities. I'm the guy who got rid of the tax on feminine hygiene products. That was a medical necessity for people. Eating is a medical necessity. It is a necessity. You shouldn't tax it.
Right now, there's an follow-up question, and I'm gonna ask you a two for two after this question. There is a county health card for people who are on Medicaid and or any type of medical assistance. And the big issue right now, even though it's not in your jurisdiction, is SNAP benefits as far as putting making it a necessity for hot foods. More grocery stores are cooking their foods. And now, as the homeless population is growing and more people are like um, making choices due to gas prices, will you, as Cook County Board President, talk to representatives or the governor of making SNAP accessible to hot foods?
Absolutely. No question about it. I'll use the platform as county board executive to leverage on behalf of the people who are hurting, who are struggling. You just said it. The homeless population is going up. This administration raised their salaries by 10%. They could have put more money into Cook County housing, put people in there to housing. They could have put more money into mental health services to help those veterans and those other folks who are sleeping under bridges to come out and get the services that they need. But they raised their salaries by 10%. My bottom line is they haven't done the work and they should not have raised their own salaries. That is arrogance. It's the height of hypocrisy, and it should never happen in government. And the people ought to vote them out of office.
Part of the problem with the taxes is the county assessor's office. While you were in office, the county assessor received $40 million to upgrade their equipment. However, the money was not spent, and county residents are still receiving their county taxes late. How are you going to change that as county board president?
So that's the responsibility of the county board president to make sure that the tax bills go out on time. And what your listening audience needs to understand is that when the tax bills don't go out on time, library districts, local municipalities, all of these folks who depend on that revenue at that time, they don't have it. And so some will have to go out and borrow money and wait for that money to come in and then pay off that because they don't have it. And so the county executive, the county board president has to talk with the assessor, talk with the board of review, make sure that they're doing everything that they need to do to get those tax bills out on time. And oh, let me not leave out the treasurer as well. She's a part of that as well. Maria Pappas's office in terms of the tax bills. Now, you talk about that equipment, that $40 million equipment about Tyler Technology. I voted on that. I think it was in 2015. We voted to give the assessor that new technology to help make things transparent for his office, for the treasurer's office, board of review. They're not using it. They're not using it. It's not even being used right now. But we expended the money. So somebody's had on a roll. It's 2022. We passed it back in 2015. Somebody's had on a roll.
Another part of the problem, a lot of people are saying, can't mention no names, senior exemption programs is another issue facing Cook County government. First, describe the senior exemption program, and I'll follow that up with a question after you describe that.
Well, those senior exemptions have to be filed through the assessor's office. Um, and then, obviously, I think you have to file them every year if memory serves me correctly, because sometimes a senior might pass and then somebody's still collecting that senior exemption. The people are staying there in the
And
place.
and that's my follow-up question, because a lot of people are cashing in on that. And as board president, how are you going to make the deceased property owner who transfer their homes and properties to their relatives to pay their fair share and get out of the senior exemption row?
Well, it has to happen. Look, the assessor has to make sure that that happens. That's why the assessor has to get out of the ivory tower and county and the county building and get into the neighborhoods and talk to all of the people throughout the county. And you have a lot of township assessors as well, um, who can also help catch those things. But you got to look at the records. I mean, every time a person is deceased, there's a death certificate that is issued by the county clerk's office. And so, you got to compare notes, you got to compare records. You got to figure out this stuff before it gets away from us. And so, the other thing is that we got to send a real strong signal to the people of the county that you can't do that. That if your grandmother uh, dies, unfortunately, and the property falls to you, you can't continue in the senior exemption. You have to then let the assessor's office know so that they can then take off the exemption.
Very quickly, according to the Nurses United, the Cook County Health Department budget for 2021 was approved unanimously by commissioners in late November, calling for cuts to emergency care services at Provident Hospital and closing community health clinics on Chicago's South Side. As a result, the layoffs targeting nurses and physicians at Provident hospitals leave the emergency room dangerously understaffed for surrounded communities. The decision was made during the pandemic, which includes the closing of Westlake Hospital. As county board president, what will you do to assist county hospitals like Provident hospitals and communities without any health services, and they have to travel outside their community to seek medical assistance?
I talked about the glaring failures of this administration at the beginning of COVID. Provident Hospital was one of them. They closed the emergency room for 2 weeks, said that they had to retrofit it to make sure that people were social distancing and that sort of thing. That's preposterous. Nobody else closed their emergency room to do that. You just don't do things like that.
So,
Um,
as county board
so as
president, will
county
you?
board president, I'm going to give, well, let me just say this. I'm going to make sure that that health system, the Cook County Health and Hospital System, is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right now, on the contract side of things, it takes them a long time to pay vendors. Too long. We need to pay vendors within 30, 60 days, 90 days at most. We can't take a half a year to pay a vendor. That's wrong. Black companies can't stay in business if they don't get paid within most of them 60 days. So we need to make sure we do that. But we need to make sure that we got our nurses, we treat them fairly, we treat our doctors fairly, we treat our employees fairly. And we're partners. We're working together for the good of the people of Cook County. So I'm going to give them what they need in order to succeed. But we're also going to make sure that they're doing the work of the people and that people are getting the services that they deserve.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station where they can get a hold of you, your punch number, and stuff like that. We getting a hard rap.
Well, thank you very much, Roman, and I'm proud to be here. I want to thank you and thank Intellectual Radio for having me. People can contact me through my website at richardboykin for Cook County. .com, richardboykin for Cook County.com. You can also inbox me on Facebook, Richard Boykin. Look forward to talking to as many people as possible. But what I ask of you most of all is please go out and vote. You know what to do. Punch 102. 102 for Richard Boykin. Thank you so much. God bless everybody.
Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer, Wanda, who's behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful week.
Hi, I'm Attorney Richard Boykin, and I'm running for Cook County Board President. Cook County is at a crossroads. President Preckwinkle has failed to keep us safe. Gun violence, carjacking, retail thefts, and other crimes have terrorized our neighborhoods, where our children are dying in the streets and families are not getting justice. As a former commissioner, I fought against the regressive soda tax, and we won. And I will make our neighborhoods safer. It's time for real change in Cook County. I ask for your support on June 28th.
Paid for by Friends of Richard Boykin.